Ah, it's that time. I love making these list videos every year. The top 5 best Five Nights at Freddy's fan games of the year. These videos involve me looking back at the just now passing year's new releases in regards to new FNaF fan games, and see which ones were the best, and then make a top 5 about it, giving credit and props to the fan game developers that did a good job that year, and have their huge efforts be commended for. Now, for 2022, the FNaF fan game world was interesting, both in terms of what games released, and what's happening surrounding the fan games, aka the community. And that was because while there was good to it, there was also a noticeable amount of bad to it. In terms of the fan games, there were some really good fan games that came out, especially the ones that made it on this list. However, there were some noticeably bad ones this year, and I'm not referring to scratched fan games by kids or beginners, no. There were some fan games this year developed by competent and experienced people that I personally consider bad. And as you'll see later, as well as an honorable mention section, there's going to be a dishonorable mention section now. Okay, now, there weren't that much notable bad fan games, so therefore, this is still just a best list and not a both best and worst list. Hopefully it never comes to that. And in terms of the community surrounding the fan games, there was the release of Pop Goes Arcade Premium Edition, which came with a Machinist DLC expansion, but along with that there were downs like The Pair, Feth King, Kane Gang Cancelled for Racism, and more. Again, the fan game world was interesting this year. Well, let's do the usual and list my top 5 personal favorite fan games that came out in 2022. I should clarify right now, since I know people will be asking me, I will not be including Pop Goes Arcade in this. Yes, a premium version and its expansion did come out in 2022, but I think it wouldn't be fair to put an originally released in 2020 fan game up against new fan games that did come out in 2022. I will say though, it would have made number 1 on this list if it was counted. Besides the obvious rules of it's just my opinion and only fan games that came out in 2022, I think I'm ready. Let's get into this. Now, I kind of have a personal bias for Bondi's Barnyard since it was developed by a good friend of mine, that being POTUS. However, when looking at this game objectively, I still think it's a pretty good fan game and worthy of the number 5 spot. So Bondi's Barnyard. You must play as Cole the Cow animatronic. Yep, you're playing as an animatronic, and you must shut doors, hold a light, literally go AFK and stop moving when the camera in front of you randomly turns on. All the while, with everything I just said, you must also keep your breathing under control. Now, what I like the most about the gameplay in this game is that it's simple, but in a good and engaging way. There isn't a lot to keep track of, but there's not outright nothing either. It's similar to FNaF 1, where you learn the mechanics of every animatronic and you just get into the flow or rhythm of the game, and ergo, you have a strategy in place. It's all balanced, so it's not complete bullshit. Again, I would describe this game as simplistic enough to where it makes the game good. By far though, the best aspect of this game is that you are in fact playing as an animatronic. That's not a concept we don't typically see in any other FNaF related media, so for that to be a part of the game is unique and fresh. As well, the fact this goes by hours and not nights also make this game stand out more. I also really like the artwork seen throughout the game, whether that be the cutscenes after each hour, the loading screens, and etc. As someone who knows POTUS, the developer, he's a good artist when he's working on art for other works, whatever they may be, and the artwork in Bondi's Barnyard is no exception. It looks so expressive and vibrant, and it gives the game a special kind of identity, especially the post-hour cutscenes. They give an old school cartoon vibe to me, and it's so endearing. The lore is also quite good too, and understandable enough to follow. And the game comes with an extras menu, a custom hour, and a full-on night mode where you must survive what is the equivalent to a single night in FNaF. Bondi's Barnyard is honestly pretty good. The only real critique I have with this game is that it can be a little slow near the beginning of the hours, especially for 1 and 2 AM, but it picks up at least, so it's not that bad. Overall, I recommend this game. LEGO FNaF is a remake of the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, but in LEGO, what makes this game so great is quite simply the amount of effort put into the whole LEGO aspect of it. It goes all out. Everything genuinely looks like it's part of a big FNaF 1 LEGO set, from the building and rooms in general to the animatronics to the items, and not even with just in-universe visual stuff like that. Literally, the game's presentation is very remnant of LEGOs, such as the life system that is commonly found in LEGO video games, including the icons, as well as the collectible LEGO studs throughout the game. It's all perfect to a fucking T. The sound effects are even very Lego-y. As well, I love how you can actually buy many things out of a shop for the game, like things that will help you in the game, like the plushies and extra health, office decorations, skins, the fucking kitchen camera, fucking Sparky. That's a lot of cool things you can buy from there. There's also weekly challenges and custom night challenges. Basically, there's just a lot of replay value in this game. This game has you coming back to it to get everything there is to get and to beat everything you can beat. This game quite simply just has a lot to it, even for a game that is essentially a remake of a game as short and sweet and simple as FNaF 1. If you literally want the absolute perfect gameplay and mechanics of the first game, but in a unique and possibly nostalgic style or coat of paint, this game's for you. The fact this game is so cool and so creative, while it makes me proud of this game, also makes me feel bad because, well, this game isn't available to play anymore. Basically, what ended up happening was on December 14th, the game had a DMCA takedown by LEGO themselves, which, man, that's just sad. Like I said earlier, a lot of effort was put into the authenticity of this game's presentation and appeal, and to see all of that just go bye-bye just hurts to see. Even more so since the developer was going to make a LEGO version of FNaF 2. Well, not everything can have a happy ending, huh? Still though, LEGO FNaF, whether gone or not, it was all around a really good experience. Now, this was the return of a certain FNaF Fangames series that not a lot of people saw coming, Five Nights at the Krusty Krab Chapter 3. Originally planned to be called Five Nights at Rock Bottom with some differences in its original gameplay and presentation, the game finally came out, and let me just say, I had a blast with this one. Truly, I did. The gameplay was fun, tense, and enjoyable. Graphics were super, the little references to SpongeBob were neat, which I care about since I'm a huge fan of SpongeBob. All of it were spectacular to me. Now, I'm not going to get into detail with this one because, well, I have a certain friend of mine that would like to come on and say their thoughts of this game, which are very similar to mine. So Spongy124, take it away.
Thank you, Tyler, for that stellar introduction. Hey there, everybody. It's me, the guy who never shuts up about a talking sponge and boxes. Now I'm going to go into full detail into why this SpongeBob FNaF fan game is actually pretty good. Just so you all know, Five Nights at the Krusty Krab Chapter 3 is miles better than the second game, and 1,000,000 times better than the first. First of all, the aesthetic of this game is amazing. The location is a shipwreck that landed in rock bottom, and it honestly looks even better than the location of the second game. You can tell Sinkaruni, the developer, really learned a lot in the years between 2 and 3. No insult to Chum Bucket, but those first two games were pretty inconsistent with both their style and gameplay. This game is way more streamlined with both the designs of the enemies and all the equipment you use in your office. Speaking of the enemies, gone are the days of Roblox Spinglebab and Spiky Tooth Patrick, and now we have these absolute chilling looking animatronics. They are technically remnants of the robots from the first two, but absolutely mangled and destroyed, to the point where I just gotta start eating my arms whenever I see them. And the gameplay, oh god, the gameplay. The gameplay is so tight that it could probably squeeze every water drop out of Spingleboob. Every character, except the Phantoms, requires you to always pay attention to them and never lose sight, which when I first played it, reminded me a lot of the Floppies games, which is 100% intentional when you think about it. You can just tell what a clear vision Sinkaruni had when making this game. Well, all except for the story, which is the only part I'm not a big fan of. So, considering the cliffhanger from the second game, this was pretty underwhelming. Almost every event from the first game was slightly retconned, like the game's not taking place in Bikini Bottom, but somewhere in the US, and the entire game we just played being a dream we had recovering in a hospital. None of this is even hinted at before the ending of Night 6. This just all comes out of nowhere, almost like the intro cutscene is a red herring. So yeah, the story is kinda mid, but let's be honest, who focused on that in a Spaggle Beep FNaF horror game? The game is still amazing with everything else, and you should totally play it right after this video is over, along with all the other games Tyler talked about. Now, if you excuse me, I gotta go back to waiting for the Cosmic Shake to come out. Bye bye!
Well, on to the next one. This game was something else. Now, what makes this fan game unique is that the main animatronics for this game are the toy animatronics, but withered. To start off, the gameplay is really solid. I like the combination of mechanics that, similar to previous games on this list, gets you into a rhythm and gives you a decent amount to keep track of. Nothing is over or under explained. As well as the gameplay, I really like the atmosphere in it. It's all dark and semi-colorless, but not to the point of Candy's 2 where it doesn't have flavor. The sound design is also really stellar and helps with the atmosphere some more. That also includes the soundtrack. They didn't have to go that fucking hard with the menu theme, oh my god. Also, along with some of their cool animations, the designs of the withered toy animatronics themselves are actually really fantastic. They didn't just put withered holes on the toy animatronics and called it a day. No. Effort was actually put into how the withering looked from a design perspective, and that just shows how much passion was put into this neat little fan game. I will critique this game for one thing though. Night 6 as a boss night is just, ugh. It's not the worst FNaF boss night ever, but I don't think the mechanics flow that well when compared to the normal gameplay. I don't know, Chief. I guess it's cool though that it's Fredbear and Spring Bonnie we're going up against. Anyway though, Fazbear Entertainment Storage is genuinely a really good FNaF fan game that triumphs with its animatronics and its gameplay. Now we got the honorable mentions and the dishonorable mentions to go over. Let's start off with the honorable mentions. Tubbyland Archives. Enjoyable gameplay with its fair share of creepifying childhood characters like the Teletubbies. Aftonbuilt. As the rejected and unfinished fanverse game, the gameplay is still pretty solid and has a bunch of innovative and unique aspects to it all. And the Glitched Attraction. A very good spin on the free roam FNaF fan games where it takes an escape room-like approach and offers good gameplay from that concept alone. Now the dishonorable mentions. The newest element to my annual top 5 FNaF fan games of the year videos. These are the FNaF fan games that I would consider the worst of the year. There's only 2 though. Post Shift 2, a very messy, confusing, and pointlessly complex product when it comes to its gameplay, has very weird and too goofy animatronic animations, lore that makes no sense, even as a sequel to what was a solid first game. The only true positive to it is its visuals. They slap. And Juniors, in my opinion, the most overrated FNaF fan game of all time, and the worst fan game of 2022. Very disjointed, confusing again gameplay for the first 5 nights with absolutely baffling and strange game design, a 6th night which fails abysmally as a boss night, and an awfully written and shittily presented story that leaves more questions than answers by the end, has attempts at character emotion that fails, and overall just doesn't click together. The only saving graces to this game are its visuals yet again, and its soundtrack. By far the most popular case of a graphics over gameplay game. With all of this though, let's carry on to what is in my opinion, the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game of 2022. Just like Five Nights at the Krusty Krab Chapter 3, this is a sequel to a classic FNaF fan game. While it's technically a sequel to the official remake of the classic, regardless, this is a Treasure Island sequel, and an amazing one at that. So amazing, I honestly prefer this game over Treasure Island. Oblitus Casa continues where the lore of Treasure Island left off, and excusing the lore for a bit, the gameplay is fantastic. Again, it's a classic FNaF gameplay that I love. Mechanics that get introduced to you each night through vague enough hints for it to be immersive and not confusing, and then you figure it out yourself, and you put together your own strategy, even if it gets harder as the game goes on. The gameplay mechanics are all conceptually sound, and while not completely original, they're enough to create an engaging experience. There's also the uniqueness of a post-mortem bit after you die in the night, which is basically if you win this bit, you get a second chance on the night you died on and continue where you left off. It's cool. There's also the tunnel bits after each night, which creates levels of tension. To be fair, it can be cheesed by constantly clicking on an available path, but when you're actually doing it, it's really tense. As well, the character designs in this game are spectacular. They all stand out from each other in a great way, and most of them being very creepy in their own ways too. I especially love Mick-Mick's design. He's so terrifying, both with eyes and without. And speaking of Mick-Mick, Night 5 is an amazing boss night. All the mechanics you've learned for the past 4 nights come together to help form one of the most engaging and enticing boss fights to come out of a FNaF fan game. Oblitus Casa rules. It does nearly everything right, from the gameplay, to the character design, to the visuals, to the sound design, to just the little details. Oblitus Casa is a perfect sequel to Treasure Island, heavily regarded as one of the most popular FNaF fan games of all time. So I'm glad it didn't disappoint. In my opinion, it's quite simply the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game of 2022.
And the gameplay, ho ho ho, oh god, the gameplay. The gameplay, gameplay, yep, gameplay. You hear that, Tyler? You like playing your play game? and you'll have to play